What if I told you that one team traded away a player who would hit 714 home runs and become the most famous athlete in American history to pay for a Broadway show that flopped? Or that another franchise gave away a future Triple Crown winner because they miscounted his age? These aren't hypothetical scenarios. These are real trades that actually happened in MLB history. We're about to dive into the most mind-bogglingly stupid front office decisions ever made, deals so bad they created curses, dynasties, and decades of regret. Some of these trades are so ridiculous you'll think I'm making them up. Babe Ruth. Picture this. The greatest baseball player who ever lived gets sold to fund a Broadway musical that nobody remembers. This actually happened in 1919, and it stands as the most catastrophic decision in sports history. Harry Frazee owned the Boston Red Sox, but his real passion was producing shows on Broadway. The thing is, Frazee was burning through money faster than he could make it, and his theater ventures were failing left and right. At this point, Babe Ruth was already proving he was something special. He had won 89 games as a pitcher over 5 seasons while hitting .308 at the plate. Ruth had also smacked 49 home runs during his time with Boston, which was incredible for that era. The Red Sox had won 3 World Series titles with Ruth on the roster, including championships in 1915, 1916, and 1918. Ruth was literally the cornerstone of a dynasty in the making. But Frazee needed cash to fund his latest Broadway project called No, No, Nanette. So he did something that still makes baseball fans sick to their stomachs. On December 26, 1919, Frazee sold Ruth to the New York Yankees for $125,000, $25,000 in cash and promissory notes for the remainder. The announcement was made to the public on January 5, 1920. Additionally, Yankees owner Jacob Ruppert agreed to loan Frazee $300,000 using Fenway Park as collateral. The results were immediate and brutal. Ruth exploded with the Yankees, hitting 54 home runs in his first season in New York, then 59, then his famous 60 in 1927. Meanwhile, the Red Sox started what would become an 86-year championship drought. Ruth led the Yankees to 4 World Series titles during the 1920s alone, while Boston became a laughingstock. To put this into perspective, while the no-no Nanette connection is often cited, the real issue was Frazee's overall financial troubles with his theater ventures. The show actually became successful later, but Frazee needed immediate cash flow. This single decision created the Yankees dynasty and made their fans insufferable for nearly a century. The curse of the Bambino became real as Boston watched Ruth dominate year after year in New York. This wasn't just a bad trade. It was the original sin that proved money can make smart people do incredibly stupid things. The pattern would repeat itself decades later when Boston traded away another superstar, Mookie Betts, for financial reasons. Some franchises never learn from their mistakes. Frank Robinson. Here's a trade that makes you wonder if Cincinnati's front office forgot how to count. The Reds traded away Frank Robinson, a future Triple Crown winner, because they decided 30 years old meant he was over the hill. This wasn't some unproven prospect or aging veteran limping toward retirement. Robinson was already a dominant force who had established himself as one of the best hitters in the National League. By 1965, Robinson had spent 10 seasons with Cincinnati and put up incredible numbers. He was hitting .303 with 324 home runs and had made 8 All-Star teams. Robinson had also won the National League MVP award in 1961 and consistently drove in over 100 runs per season. The thing is, Robinson was entering what should have been his prime years, not heading into decline. But the Reds front office had different ideas. They labeled Robinson as an old 30 and decided they needed to get value for him before he started falling off. The logic made no sense considering Robinson had just hit .296 with 33 home runs and 113 RBIs in his final season with Cincinnati. His production showed zero signs of decline. On December 9, 1965, Cincinnati traded Robinson to the Baltimore Orioles for Milt Pappas, Jack Baldschun, and Dick Simpson. These were 3 players who brought limited value to the table. Pappas was a decent starter but nowhere near Robinson's caliber, winning only 30 games for Cincinnati before being traded to Atlanta. Baldschun won just 1 game for the Reds, and Simpson hit .246 during his time with the club. The results were immediate and embarrassing for Cincinnati. Robinson won both the Triple Crown and American League MVP award in his very first season with Baltimore. He hit .316 with 49 home runs and 122 RBIs, leading the Orioles to their first World Series championship. Robinson's performance made the Reds look like they couldn't tell the difference between 30 and 40. The long-term damage was even worse. Robinson helped Baltimore win another World Series title in 1970, while the three players Cincinnati received faded into baseball obscurity. Robinson finished his career with 586 home runs and earned first-ballot Hall of Fame induction in 1982. The return package produced nothing memorable. To put this into perspective, the Reds proved that sometimes front offices can't count to 30, let alone evaluate when a player is actually declining. This wouldn't be the last time a team gave away a superstar for spare parts. Lou Brock. The Chicago Cubs traded away a future stolen base king for a pitcher who immediately forgot how to pitch. This disaster happened in 1964 when the Cubs were desperate to improve their rotation and thought they found their answer in Ernie Broglio. The logic seemed solid at first glance. Chicago needed an ace, and Broglio looked like exactly what they were missing. Broglio was coming off strong seasons with the St. Louis Cardinals, including an 18-8 record with a 2.99 ERA in 1963. He had also won 21 games just 2 years earlier and seemed like a proven commodity who could anchor the Cubs' rotation for years. The Cardinals were willing to part with him, which should have been the first warning sign that something was wrong. On June 15, 1964, the Cubs sent Lou Brock, Jack Spring, and Paul Toth to St. Louis in exchange for Broglio, Doug Clemens, and Bobby Shantz. At the time, Brock was hitting just .251 with Chicago and seemed like a speedy outfielder who couldn't quite put it all together. The trade looked reasonable on paper, with both teams addressing their needs. The immediate results were catastrophic for Chicago. Broglio went 7-19 with a 5.40 ERA during his time with the Cubs and was completely out of baseball within 3 years. His control disappeared, his velocity dropped, and he became one of the worst starting pitchers in the majors. The ace the Cubs thought they were getting turned into a batting practice pitcher. Meanwhile, Brock exploded with the Cardinals and became the catalyst for their championship runs. He hit .348 in his first 103 games with St. Louis and helped them win the 1964 World Series that same year. Brock then played a key role in their 1967 championship as well, proving his speed could change games in ways the Cubs never imagined. To put this into perspective, the Cubs gave away a player who would steal 938 bases and make the Hall of Fame. Brock's impact went far beyond just stolen bases. He scored runs, created pressure on defenses, and turned singles into doubles with his aggressive base running. His ability to manufacture runs made average Cardinals teams into championship contenders. Chicago proved that sometimes trying to fix your pitching staff can cost you a Hall of Fame career and multiple championships. This trade became a template for Cubs futility that would last for decades. Jeff Bagwell. Boston traded away a future MVP and 449 home runs for exactly 22 innings of relief pitching. This stunning reality happened in 1990 when the Red Sox were making a playoff push and desperately needed bullpen help. They targeted Larry Anderson, a veteran reliever who was having a solid season with the Houston Astros. The Red Sox were in the thick of a pennant race and thought Anderson could be the missing piece for their bullpen. Anderson was posting decent numbers and had experience in high-pressure situations. Boston's front office believed he could provide the reliable late-inning help they needed to secure a playoff spot. The thing is, Houston demanded Jeff Bagwell as part of the deal. Bagwell was just a minor league prospect in Boston's system who was hitting well in Double-A, but hadn't proven anything at the major league level. The Red Sox viewed Bagwell as expendable depth, not a future superstar slugger. They figured they had plenty of position players in their system and could afford to part with one prospect for immediate help. The trade happened on August 30, 1990, and the immediate results were brutal for Boston. Anderson pitched exactly 22 innings for the Red Sox over 15 appearances, posting a 1.23 ERA but making zero lasting impact. When the season ended, Anderson left as a free agent, giving Boston nothing in return for their prized prospect. Meanwhile, Bagwell exploded with Houston and became everything the Astros hoped for and more. He won National League Rookie of the Year in 1991, then captured the MVP award in 1994. Bagwell would go on to hit 449 home runs during his 15-year career, all with the Astros. His impact went far beyond just power numbers. Bagwell posted a career OPS of 948 and walked more than he struck out. To put this into perspective, Boston essentially traded 449 home runs and a franchise cornerstone for less than 25 innings of work. Bagwell's complete dominance included not just the home runs, but incredible on-base skills and leadership that made Houston competitive for years. He became the face of the Astros franchise and anchored their lineup through multiple playoff runs. This trade proved that sometimes the throw-in prospect becomes the main event while the main target disappears into irrelevance. Teams constantly undervalue young talent for short-term fixes that rarely work. Pedro Martinez. Montreal traded away a pitcher who would win 3 Cy Young Awards for Carl Pavano. This disaster happened because the Expos were broke and couldn't afford to keep their best player. The financial constraints were so severe that Montreal had no choice but to trade Pedro Martinez before losing him for nothing in free agency. The thing is, Martinez was coming off a Cy Young Award season in 1997 and was entering his absolute prime at age 26. He had just posted a 1.90 ERA with 305 strikeouts, proving he was already one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball. Martinez's combination of a blazing fastball and devastating changeup made him nearly unhittable when he was on his game. On November 18, 1997, Montreal traded Martinez to the Boston Red Sox for Carl Pavano and Tony Armas Jr. These were 2 prospects with potential but zero guarantees they would develop into major league contributors. Pavano was a young starter with decent stuff, while Armas Jr. was the son of a former major leaguer trying to make his own mark. The immediate results were brutal for Montreal. Martinez became even more dominant with Boston, winning Cy Young Awards in 1999 and 2000. His 1999 season was particularly incredible, as he posted a 2.07 ERA while the league average was 4.86. Martinez struck out 313 batters that year and completely dominated American League hitters. The Expos essentially gift-wrapped a Hall of Fame pitcher to a division rival and watched him dominate for years. Martinez helped the Red Sox reach multiple playoff series and played a key role in their 2004 World Series championship. That title broke Boston's 86-year curse, adding insult to injury for Montreal fans who watched their former ace celebrate on the biggest stage. To put this into perspective, the return players struggled with injuries and inconsistency throughout their careers. Pavano dealt with constant injury problems and never lived up to his potential. Armas Jr. failed to develop as expected and had a forgettable major league career. Montreal proved that sometimes financial desperation leads to giving your enemies the exact weapon they need to beat you. This trade exemplified how small market teams constantly feed talent to big market competitors who can actually afford to keep elite players. Nolan Ryan. New York traded away a pitcher who would throw 7 no-hitters because they got frustrated with his control issues. This happened in December 1971 when the Mets decided Nolan Ryan's wildness made him too unreliable to build around. Ryan had incredible stuff but walked way too many batters during his 4 seasons in New York. The Mets' frustration was understandable at first glance. Ryan had walked 344 batters in just 292 innings during 1970 and 1971 combined. His control problems were obvious and seemed to get worse under pressure. Ryan would strike out plenty of hitters, but he would also issue free passes at an alarming rate that killed rallies and frustrated his teammates. The Mets thought they found their solution in Jim Fregosi, a veteran third baseman who could help their lineup immediately. Fregosi was a 6-time All-Star who had spent his entire career with the California Angels. New York valued his experience and proven bat over Ryan's potential, viewing the control issues as something that could never be fixed. The trade logic seemed sound to the Mets front office. They figured Fregosi's offensive production was more valuable than Ryan's unpredictable performances. New York believed Ryan would never harness his control enough to become a reliable starter, so they might as well get something useful in return. Ryan exploded in his first season with California, posting a 2.28 ERA with 329 strikeouts. His control issues didn't magically disappear, but the Angels coaching staff helped him channel his wildness into something more effective. Ryan struck out batters at a rate never seen before while keeping his walks at manageable levels. The transformation into a strikeout machine and no-hitter king was complete over the next few seasons. Ryan threw his first no-hitter in 1973, then proceeded to throw 6 more over his career. His fastball regularly hit 100 miles per hour well into his 40s, and opposing hitters had no answers for his combination of speed and movement. To put this into perspective, the Mets gave up on a player who would strike out 5,714 batters and become the most dominant power pitcher in baseball history. Ryan's incredible longevity included 7 no-hitters, a 27-year career, and strikeout records that will never be broken. Fregosi hit .232 in his only season with New York before retiring. New York proved that sometimes what looks like a flaw is actually a superpower waiting to be developed properly. Josh Donaldson. Oakland traded away a player who would immediately become the best third baseman in baseball. This happened in November 2014 when the Athletics were rebuilding and viewed Josh Donaldson as their most valuable trade asset. The A's wanted to restock their farm system and figured they could get multiple prospects for one established star. The thing is, Oakland was giving up a player entering his prime years with elite power and defense. Donaldson had just finished a season hitting .255 with 29 home runs and 98 RBIs. He was already a 2-time top 10 MVP finisher and had established himself as one of the premier third basemen in baseball. His combination of power hitting and Gold Glove defense made him incredibly valuable. The A's traded Donaldson to Toronto for Brett Lawrie, Kendall Graveman, Sean Nolan, and Franklin Barreto. This package looked decent on paper. Lawrie was a young third baseman who could replace Donaldson, Graveman was a promising pitcher, and the other two were prospects with potential. Oakland thought they were getting quantity over quality while addressing multiple positions. Donaldson exploded in his first season with Toronto and won the American League MVP award. He hit .297 with 41 home runs, 123 RBIs, and posted an OPS of .939. His performance validated his status as an elite player and showed exactly what Oakland had given away. Donaldson became the cornerstone of Toronto's offense and led them to the playoffs. Meanwhile, the return package struggled with injuries and inconsistency throughout their time with Oakland. Lawrie lasted only 1 season before getting traded to Chicago. Graveman posted a .437 ERA over 4 seasons and never developed into a frontline starter. Nolan and Barreto failed to make any significant impact, with Barreto struggling to establish himself in the majors. To put this into perspective, this trade showed Oakland's perpetual rebuilding cycle, where they always traded away stars just as they peaked. The A's constantly cycled through talent, instead of building around proven players like Donaldson. This approach prevented them from competing consistently for championships. The A's proved that sometimes getting quantity over quality just means you get more players who can't actually play. Noah Syndergaard. Toronto traded away Thor and his 100-mile-per-hour fastball for a rental player who lasted 2 seasons. This happened in December 2012 when the Blue Jays were trying to compete immediately and decided they needed a veteran arm for their rotation. The win-now mentality made them willing to sacrifice future potential for what they hoped would be immediate playoff success. The thing is, Toronto was giving up Noah Syndergaard, their top pitching prospect with elite potential. Syndergaard possessed a blazing fastball that regularly hit triple digits and a promising arsenal of secondary pitches. He was exactly the type of young arm that teams spend years trying to develop, but the Blue Jays viewed him as expendable for the right veteran pitcher. On December 17, 2012, Toronto traded Syndergaard and catcher Travis d'Arnaud to the New York Mets for R.A. Dickey, Josh Thole, and Mike Nickias. Dickey was the centerpiece coming off a Cy Young award-winning season with the Mets in 2012. The Blue Jays figured his knuckleball would anchor their rotation and lead them to the playoffs they desperately wanted to reach. The immediate aftermath was brutal for Toronto's front office. Dickey posted a .421 ERA during his 2 seasons with the Blue Jays, a significant drop from his .273 ERA in his Cy Young season. Meanwhile, Syndergaard developed into an ace with the Mets and earned the nickname Thor for his dominant pitching style and powerful fastball that made opposing hitters look helpless. Syndergaard's triple-digit fastball became legendary as he established himself as one of the most feared pitchers in the National League. His breakout seasons with New York showed exactly what Toronto had given up. The contrast became even more painful when Syndergaard played a key role in the Mets' 2015 World Series run, showcasing his elite skills on baseball's biggest stage. To put this into perspective, Toronto traded away a future ace for a knuckleball pitcher who was already past his prime. The Blue Jays proved that sometimes chasing a Cy Young winner means giving up your own future Cy Young candidate. This trade showed the danger of overvaluing veterans at the expense of elite prospects who could anchor your franchise for years to come. Adrian Gonzalez. San Diego essentially paid other teams to take their best player and got nothing in return. This absurd reality happened in December 2010 when the Padres faced serious financial problems and couldn't afford Adrian Gonzalez's contract. The team needed to cut payroll immediately, which meant trading away their franchise cornerstone just to stay financially stable. The thing is, San Diego was giving up their best hitter who was entering his prime years. Gonzalez had established himself as one of the premier first basemen in baseball and was the face of the Padres franchise. He consistently hit over .270 with 30-plus home runs and drove in more than 100 runs per season. Trading him away meant losing their most reliable offensive weapon and their biggest drawing card for fans. The trade sent Gonzalez, Ivan De Jesus Jr., and Scott Cervenka to Boston for Casey Kelly, Anthony Rizzo, Raymond Fuentes, and Eric Patterson. This package looked decent on paper since the Padres received multiple prospects who could potentially help rebuild their organization. Kelly was considered a top pitching prospect, while Rizzo showed promise as a young first baseman. But here's where the irony gets painful. Rizzo became a star player, just not with San Diego. The Padres traded him to Chicago in January 2012 before he could develop into the all-star he would become. Rizzo went on to make multiple all-star teams with the Cubs and help them win the 2016 World Series. San Diego managed to give away a perennial all-star and then mess up the return by trading away the best piece they received. Meanwhile, Gonzalez continued his excellent performance with Boston. He hit .298 with 49 home runs and 198 RBIs over 2 seasons with the Red Sox. His production showed exactly what the Padres had given up while they struggled through years of rebuilding and losing seasons. This trade showed the Padres' pattern of developing talent only to trade it away for financial reasons. The team consistently prioritized cutting costs over building a competitive roster, which prevented them from ever establishing sustained success. To put this into perspective, San Diego proved that sometimes salary dumping your best player just means you get to be bad and broke. This situation highlights the broader issue of small market teams being unable to retain their homegrown stars due to financial constraints. Modern era disasters. Even with advanced analytics, teams still make trades that would embarrass their predecessors. The modern era has given front offices more data than ever before. But some franchises continue to repeat the same catastrophic mistakes that have haunted baseball for over a century. Recent disasters prove that no amount of statistics can fix old-fashioned stupidity. The Mookie Betts trade to the Dodgers in 2020 serves as a perfect example. Boston traded away their 2018 MVP winner to cut payroll, watching him help Los Angeles win 2 World Series titles while receiving Alex Verdugo, Jeter Downs, and Connor Wong in return. This trade was basically the Babe Ruth Sale all over again, just with different uniforms. The Red Sox apparently learned nothing from 1919 and repeated the exact same mistake 100 years later. They gave away a generational talent for financial reasons and watched him dominate elsewhere. The thing is, Betts continued his all-star performance while the return package produced minimal impact for Boston. The Miami Marlins have turned trading away MVP-caliber talent into an art form. They shipped Christian Yelich to Milwaukee in 2018, receiving Lewis Brinson and Isan Diaz, among others. Yelich immediately won the National League MVP award with the Brewers, while the prospects Miami received combined for replacement-level value. The Marlins also traded Giancarlo Stanton to the Yankees after his 2017 MVP season, getting Starlin Castro and low-level prospects in return. These modern disasters follow familiar patterns. Teams treat Hall of Fame talent like garage sale items. Scouts apparently watch games blindfolded, and rebuilding years last decades instead of seasons. The Colorado Rockies actually paid the Cardinals $51 million to take Nolan Arenado in 2021, essentially bribing another team to accept their five-time All-Star third baseman. To put this into perspective, analytics can't fix short-sightedness and financial desperation when front offices prioritize money over winning. The modern era proves that some mistakes are truly timeless. Teams still trade away franchise cornerstones for prospects who never develop and veterans who immediately decline. These recent catastrophes will haunt franchises just like historical disasters. The patterns remain identical, even though the technology has changed completely. Front offices continue making decisions that turn superstars into salary relief while watching those players succeed elsewhere. The worst trades become franchise-defining moments that haunt organizations longer than championship droughts. Teams can rebuild rosters and develop new talent, but they can never erase the memory of giving away greatness for nothing. The thing is, these disasters shape how fans view their franchises for generations. Sometimes giving away greatness hurts more than never having it at all. Watching Babe Ruth dominate in pinstripes or Pedro Martinez win championships elsewhere creates a special kind of pain that losing seasons can't match. These trades remind us that human error will always be part of baseball's story, no matter how much data we collect.